We are anonymous, your shadow network reporting on the hidden battles of the 21st century, the wars no official press wants you to see. Tonight we bring you a story of escalation, of blurred lines between crime, war, and geopolitics. At exactly 4:25 a.m. on October 18th, 2025, the quiet waters south of Corpus Christi transformed into a zone of lethal confrontation. The guided missile amphibious assault ship, USS was on station when 3 unmarked vessels appeared on its radar, fast, silent, running without lights, moving in tight formation. At first glance, they could have been drug-smuggling boats, the old story, but infrared scans told another tale. These ships were loaded with industrial drums of high-toxicity fentanyl precursor chemicals, and beneath tarps you could make out heavy machine guns and anti-air weapons. They were combat units in disguise, their mission to strike at the heart of America's energy supply. Their target wasn't a border patrol cutter or a small fishing fleet. It was the United States energy corridor, a network powering 1/5 of America's fuel supply. The order went out: detect, declare, hostile act. One short, encrypted command, hostile designation confirmed. Analysts later pored over the wreckage and determined the chemical drums in the flotilla were enough precursor to make 6.5 tons of fentanyl, enough to kill over 200 million people had it been unleashed. For the crew on the Tripoli's bridge, there was no more policing mission. It was the opening move of a war that had just found America's southern shore. They debated, should the United States strike first to defend its borders or await an even larger attack? The decision was made. 22 minutes after detection, execute operationironwave. The first missile, an AGM-114, our Hellfire II, fired from the deck, 995 miles per hour, across the night. A blinding flash. In one heartbeat, the lead vessel disintegrated. Debris flame, shockwave over half a mile radius. Radar then showed 2 targets remaining. The second strike, a MH-60, our Seahawk laser-guided, hitting dead center, a freighter, which erupted into a tower of fire. The chemical vapor clouds soared hundreds of feet into the air. Ammonium acetate, the key ingredient in synthetic opioids. The third boat was crippled. Marines closed in. Beneath tarps, they found encrypted satellite transmitters, coastal navigation charts, and United States oil route schematics linking Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama. The evidence was clear. This was no smuggling mission. It was a targeted attack on America's energy arteries. By flooding the United States with synthetic narcotics and attacking fuel infrastructure, the cartels were engineering not only addiction and death, but economic collapse and political leverage. And they weren't alone. Intelligence traced foreign military advisors supplying precise navigation technology, encrypted communication gear, transforming a narco network into a shadow army. At 5:02 a.m., the president signed an emergency directive. From that moment on, cartel vessels operating offshore were designated hostile combatants, a line crossed that no administration had dared to draw. The age of narco warfare was declared over. 2 ships destroyed, 1 drifting. What they found aboard changed everything. Chinese-made guidance chips, United States oil route maps. If you believed foreign powers might test America's defenses, this was your proof. But the retaliation hadn't ended. At 7:05 a.m., radar stations along the Texas coast lit up. 6 fast-moving aerial objects, skimming less than 200 feet above sea level, coming north from Cuban airspace. Metallic cores, abnormal thermal signatures, unmanned but far beyond a cartel's usual toys. In the Combat Information Center aboard the Tripoli, they counted down 3 minutes to coastal intercept. F-35s scrambled, Lightning IIs climbing through low fog like silent predators. The first missile impacted a drone at Mach 1.2. The second shredded another via the ship's close, in weapons system tungsten rounds. 4 drones kept coming, zigzagging to fool radar locks. At 7:13 a.m., One broke off and dived at the Galveston Bay refinery, a facility producing nearly 14% of Texas' daily fuel output. A white flash, explosion equivalent to 2.3 kilotons. Windows shattered 20 miles inland. Outer tanks burned for 6 hours. Damage exceeding $48 million. But the shock to the psyche was the real blow. Markets stumbled. Cable news called it the second Pearl Harbor. Opposition leaders yelled that the administration had provoked a region-wide war. And for the first time in decades, Americans asked, if the cartels can strike Texas, what city is next? Intelligence traced the attack to a warlord named Tren de Aragua, suspected of commanding over 600 armed operatives and a full drone supply chain stretching from Venezuela to Mexico. At 7:40 a.m., emergency protocols along the Gulf defense grid swung to condition crimson, the highest alert since 9/11. For the first time, a non-state actor had launched a coordinated air assault on the United States, buried deep in intercepted signals. A single encrypted message repeated over and over. Phase 2 begins at sunrise. The war was no longer offshore. It had come home. By mid-morning, the retaliation mission was underway. Task Force Horizon, a joint strike group comprising 312 United States Marines, DEA tactical agents, and Coast Guard interdiction teams, moved south toward the Mexican coastline under strict radio silence. RQ-180 Sentinel drones overhead detected an unusual heat bloom beneath a coastal hillside outside Veracruz, a web of steel containers, power conduits, and exhaust vents. Analysts concluded this was the launch hub for the drone swarm that hit Texas. Diplomatic cables from Mexico City flew tensely. The Mexican president demanded explanation, accusing Washington of violating sovereignty. Behind closed doors, Pentagon officials responded icily, "If you will not control your territory, we will." In Europe, NATO envoys quietly supported the United States, while Beijing and Caracas condemned the strikes as imperialist aggression. The Gulf of Mexico had just become a diplomatic minefield. At 10:40, 2 a.m., the first wave struck. 2 EA-18G Growlers jammed every signal within a 40-mile radius. MH-60R Seahawks deployed Marine raiders onto the beach. The air smelled of fuel and salt. Beneath the sand lay an underground factory. Reinforced tunnels lined with 40 rocket tubes, each engraved with the word revenge and marked CJNG. Nearby racks of carbon fiber, drone wings, and crates with Russian stencils. This wasn't cartel improvisation. It was foreign engineering. When the raiders breached the main tunnel, they triggered motion sensors. A timer lit 38 seconds before C4 charges detonated. Navy EOD teams had to act fast, cutting circuits in the final second, averting an explosion that could have leveled half a mile. In a single stroke, America had discovered the enemy's heart, a command hub capable of launching 120 drones an hour disguised as a fishing depot. One encrypted laptop streamed data to an unidentified server. On the screen repeated, Phase 2. Confirmed standby for retaliation. The Marines needed no translation. The hunt had only begun. By mid-afternoon, the United States made its next move. 2 B-2 Spirit stealth bombers lifted off from Whiteman Air Force Base, flying silent through the stratosphere. Their payload, 12 GBU. 57 massive ordnance penetrators, each 30,000 pounds, built to pierce mountain fortresses. Their targets, 3 command compounds deep in the Sierra Madre range, confirmed drone hubs built with foreign assistance. Meanwhile, in the Gulf, the USS Lassen and USS Hopper launched 22 Tomahawk Block 5 cruise missiles toward Veracruz and Tamaulipas coasts. Each missile carried a 1,000-pound warhead and an electronic pulse module designed to wipe out communications across a 60-mile grid. Satellite feeds caught streaks of fire arcing into clouds, diving into jungle. Seconds later, the mountains lit up white. A detonation chain measured 3.4 on the Arthur scale. Inside those bunkers, analysts found foreign contractors and cartel engineers working side by side. Data nodes, antenna arrays, drone assembly units across 4 square miles were obliterated. By 3:07 p.m., all 3 sites went dark. 0 transmissions, 0 survivors. Over the skies, EA-18Gs jammed south of the Rio Grande. FWA-18. Super Hornets hunted surviving vessels. One freighter disguised as a fishing boat was struck by a 2,000-pound J-dam, erupting in a fireball visible 40 miles away. Minutes later, a second ship carrying nitrate-based fuel tanks exploded, scattering molten wreckage. In Washington, the president issued a single directive: total blackout. No warnings, no mercy. At 3:30 p.m., the Cyber War Division of United States Southern Command breached the enemy network. Drone feeds from cartel control rooms froze midair. One by one crashed into the ocean like burning comets. In less than 15 minutes, 73 aerial threats were neutralized. By sunset, the sky over the Gulf glowed red with fire and oil smoke. The United States had answered with full force, and for the first time since the war began, the cartels were silent. But silence rarely lasts. If you believe America should strike before being struck, tell us in the comments, because the next phase of this war will not begin with a missile. It will begin with a signal. By nightfall, the horizon still burned. Columns of smoke rose over Veracruz like dark monoliths. Operation Iron Wave was officially over, but its consequences were only beginning. On the Pentagon's live feed, the Gulf glowed orange, dotted with wrecks and oil slicks stretching more than 42 nautical miles. The report from Southern Command came in at 8:10 p.m. 29 confirmed targets destroyed, 73 drones neutralized, 0 civilian casualties. Financial analysts estimated cartel losses at $2.8 billion, including 3 offshore refineries, 2 cyber relay stations, and more than 18,000 pounds of chemical precursors seized or destroyed. But behind the victory, there was a deeper warning. Data from cybercommand revealed a massive cryptocurrency transfer trail through Caracas, Managua, and Bogotá, indicating a southward retreat. The enemy wasn't defeated. They were mutating. Aboard the USS exhausted Marines stood on deck, helmets off, eyes fixed on the burning horizon. Some hadn't slept for 20 hours. The scent of oil and salt mingled with victory and unease. Intelligence intercepts from the Yucatan pointed to regrouping forces, remnants of the CJNG merging with Venezuelan mercenaries and rogue technologists from Eastern Europe. What began as cartel war had morphed into a hybrid conflict, shadow armies fighting with code and gunpowder. At 8:40 p.m., a final transmission from the Pentagon sealed the night. Iron Wave, complete maintain readiness phase, Delta. Pending. In Washington, officials called it the most successful maritime operation since Panama. Strategists knew the truth. The border hadn't moved. It had expanded. America was now defending not just its shores, but its digital, economic, and energy arteries across the hemisphere. The sea was calm once more. But beneath that calm lay a new reality. The next battle would not begin with a missile. It would begin with a signal. And somewhere deep in the jungles of South America, a new network was already coming online. Morning broke over the Pacific Tropic Oceanic Activity Corridor as the world watched the aftermath of Operation Iron Wave across global headlines. Oil prices surged. Markets in Caracas and Beijing trembled. Satellite images of Veracruz showed only craters where cartel fortresses once stood. What began as a regional drug interdiction had escalated into a geopolitical shockwave, a warning to every hostile network that America's reach extended far beyond its borders. In diplomatic circles, allies called it a turning point. NATO analysts described it as the first hybrid war victory of the 21st century, where precision bombs, cyber strikes, and human intelligence combined into a single weapon. For adversaries, the message was clear. America does not negotiate with chaos. it dismantles it. Behind closed doors, the Defense Intelligence Agency released a classified assessment revealing that several cartel factions had received technical support from foreign state proxies seeking to destabilize United States influence in Latin America. Their experiment backfired. The swift coordination between Marines, Navy DEA, and Cybercommand demonstrated what decades of deterrence had built: a military machine capable of neutralizing multi-domain threats before they land on American soil. From the decks of the USS to the command centers in Miami and Washington, every sailor, soldier, and agent stood as one force, relentless, disciplined, unyielding. They carried not just weapons, but the promise of a nation. Liberty will never yield to fear. As the camera pans over the dark waters of the Gulf, the narrator's voice drops calm and steady. The border didn't move. The battlefield did. And wherever that battlefield goes, the Marines will be there first. We are anonymous. If you believe in the strength of those who stand, the watch while the rest of the world sleeps, hit subscribe, share this mission, and tell me in the comments, do America's enemies truly understand what happens when they cross the line? Because as Operation Iron Wave proved, history always remembers those who stood their ground.